We are back with the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast at sportsmemo.com with our first guest up, Teddy Covers, going from rotation numbers 129 down to 156. Then we'll be right back with Kyle Hunter, followed up by our closer, Rob Vino. But first guest, Mr. Covers. Teddy, welcome into the podcast. How are you, bud?
Hey, great to be here, Drew. Excited to talk some. I like this college football card this week, so I think there's some good games to talk about on the pod today.
Absolutely. Excited to get your opinion here on a bunch of games, really. We got some good ones as well. And guys, Teddy Covers has been good overall year to date, 68% in the NFL, 58% in college football. Both of those percentages are year to date. He did have a down week last week, so if you like handicappers in bounce back mode, Teddy is your guy. Make sure to check him out at sportsmemo.com. But we'll get right to the games here, Teddy, with 129, 130, a 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick here. We got Central Michigan at Akron. Looks like 45 the total. With Akron, the Zips laying 5 at home. How would you look to bet this action?
So, I mean, this is one of those games where, boy, you can make a good case for both teams. You know, let's start with the case for Akron. You know, Central's bad. Okay, you know, they have one win this year. That came against Maine. All right, there's a reason that John Bonamago's squad is going through these struggles. They graduated every bit of skill position talent they have. So they're very young offensively. Quarterback, wide receivers, running back, the works. It's a very much a work in progress, a rebuilding season for the Chippewas. This isn't a team you want. They haven't been good, and they're not going to be good. They're coming, blown out by Western Michigan at home. They're, our rival at home. It's not a good team. Akron, all right. The Zips have played 3 games in MAC. They scored 47 points in those 3 games. This is not a dynamic offense. This team has been bad as chalk. And when you look at Central, boy, they've been good as road dogs. They've covered, they've been miserable this season. Every time they've been a road dog, they've covered the number. And it's a type of game where Bowden, all he wants is to win. A win and get out of town. It's not a let's win by margin type of contest. So hard for me to support Central. They're no good. Hard for me to lay points with an Akron team that doesn't have much of an offense pass.
Teddy, moving to the ACC, this one surprised me when I first looked at this number. We got Duke at Pitt, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific kick here. With the total 46, and at most shops now, it's moved to 2.5 with Duke laying on the road. What are the Blue Devils doing laying less than a field goal here, Teddy? This one's surprising to me.
Well, I mean, and it's funny because from a power rating standpoint, this one's pretty clear. Of course, from a spot standpoint, let's not forget, Pitt's coming in off the bye. And as we get into late October and November, the teams coming in off the bye have a significant freshness edge over the teams that aren't. Now, does that give me the reason to get to the window to bet Pitt? No, it doesn't. During the Narduzzi era, Heinz Field has not been a money-making venue for Pitt fans. Panthers just 8-16. Good for 33% point spread winners. That's not a track record of support. And, say what you want about Duke. They have taken care of business on the highway, repeatedly. And that's what the Blue Devils, when you have an experienced QB, when you have a veteran squad, the win at Northwestern, the win at Baylor, the win at Georgia Tech. Remember, they were dogs in all of those ball games. They won them all straight up, and they won them all by double-digit margins. So, I mean, the number does look a little bit short. Spot-wise, it has to look a little bit short. But Duke is the better of these two teams.
Teddy, we got heading to the Big Ten here. Illinois at Maryland. Maryland laying a big number here, Teddy. But, breaking down this game, if Maryland can run the football, they can score points. And if Maryland can't run the football, like their last game against Iowa, they're going to get shut out. I believe they'll be able to run the ball against Illinois. I like Maryland here. The Terps laying the 17.5, which you can find. You agree with me? And we also got 52 as the total.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a one-dimensional offense for Maryland. The passing game really doesn't exist at all right now. So it comes down to that simple handicap. Can this team push their opponent around at the line of scrimmage? And, of course, that Maryland offense is designed to create big plays out of the running game, a lot of misdirections, a lot of sweeps, a lot of things that are likely to give Illinois some trouble. Just about anything offensively gives Illinois some trouble. And yet, we continue to see the Illini. They hang around for a little while, then it's gone. We saw them win at Rutgers. The last couple of games have been pretty ugly. Purdue, Wisconsin, both significantly better than Maryland, but Illinois non-competitive in those two defeats. But they did gain 210 yards on the ground against the Badgers, and if they can get that kind of production against the Terps, maybe they can hang within this number, because Maryland's certainly not a team that we're comfortable laying this type of a price with. The Terps don't have a lot of track record as big double-digit chalk against teams they're supposed to dominate.
Teddy, let's head down to the ACC here. We got Wake at Louisville, 65 the total, with Louisville 2.5 at home. It's interesting to see Louisville as a favorite, but, Wake's no good. How do you look to bet this one?
Well, Louisville's no good either.
Yeah,
I mean, these two teams are combined 0-7 in ACC play. Between them, they covered, I believe, a grand total of 2 point spreads all year against FBS competition. So we're talking about a pair of underachievers in a major way. Now, we expected to see some drop-off from Louisville. I don't think there were many people that expected to see this big of a drop-off from Louisville in the Lamar Jackson era. And look, you have Petrino under fire. All right, you have a defense that hasn't made plays. You have a team that's built on offense where you're playing QB shuffle, and when you're playing QB shuffle and neither QB is making plays, it's just, all right, one bad option to the next bad option, the next bad option. It's not pretty right now for Petrino. I'm not sure he comes back. You can say he's coaching for his job. They got at Clemson and at Syracuse next. So, but I don't even know if he wins this game if he's going to save his job. So I'm not excited about the prospect of laying a price with Louisville here, even with extra time to prepare. But Wake's been worse. I mean, Wake is worse, I think. Certainly defensively. Wake has been, we'll call it the definition of abysmal. Some really ugly numbers. And it wasn't just the Clemson game. I remember them when they gave up 56 to Notre Dame and 40. The offense moved against Boston College. Didn't matter. Defense couldn't get any stops. And, routinely 200 on the ground, 200 through the air against this defense. They only created more than one turnover once all season. Hard for me to get the winner with Wake or Louisville. Maybe. But the market's already there. This total opened as low as 62. It's bet up to 65. I'm like, maybe you're looking at an over here with the extra time to prepare. And no, the market's already there. I'll just this one is one that I looked at fairly briefly, and we're like, can't support Team A, can't support Team B. Move on to the next ball game.
Teddy, you bring up the fact he's coaching for his job. Obviously he has some off the field issues that I think a lot of people don't really like him, but one down year and he's going to lose his job? You agree with that? Maybe.
It's not just a down year at Louisville. It's where's the state of this program? Is next year going to be better for Louisville? I'm not convinced that it is, and I'm not convinced that Petrino survives this. I'm really not, because the guy's on a short leash, and they went 9-4, 8-5, 9-4, 8-5 the last 4 years. They've been good, but they haven't been great the way they were in his first tenure at Louisville. You know how fan bases are when you're good but not great.
Yeah.
You don't get the it's one thing if you're a bottom feeder program. It's another thing if you had the type of success Louisville did a decade ago, and the fans want more of that. And I don't know if they're going to get it in the Petrino administration. But we talk about coach on the hot seat. Honestly, that's fodder right now when it comes to by fodder, it's something you talk about. I don't know that it affects the handicap of the game. I don't think Petrino's coaching any harder. I don't think players are playing any harder than they're going to play anyway. But coming off a bye against a beatable foe, Louisville's supposed to win this game. Do I trust them? I do not.
All right. Well, guys, we said at the top here, Teddy's had a great season overall, 68% in the NFL, 58% college football. And we got a special coupon code. He is in bounce back mode off of this past weekend. T covers, that's TCOVERS at checkout for 50% off anything site-wide. So a 3-day all-access pass, a play, or a full season, whatever you want, it's 50% off at sportsmemo.com with the coupon code TCovers. Teddy, heading out or up to the Big Ten, we got 139, 140, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Looks like the Badgers laying 6 on the highway. Some 6.5s out there as well. 53 the total.
Yeah, and I appreciate that promo a minute ago. And it's important to note, yeah, I had a really shitty weekend last weekend. I didn't win any close games, and I certainly had a couple of wrong sides, which have not been the problem so far this football season. But, I've been doing this a long time, Drew. You know how it is. When you have a bad weekend, you hit the grindstone. I like the card this weekend, so I hope some of you take advantage of that special offer, and we can make you a little bit of money back this weekend.
Absolutely,
after
Teddy.
burning last weekend.
It's like the stock market buy on the dips. You had a dip.
I'm with you, although I'm not buying right now on the stock market for what it's worth. The real stock market, not the sports betting stock market. When it comes to the sports betting stock market, we talk about Northwestern. The markets are white hot for underdogs in Northwestern games. Why? Because the underdogs have covered every Northwestern game this year, and throughout the Pat Fitzgerald era, the underdogs continue to cover in Northwestern games at a ridiculous clip. But so far, 7-0 to the dog this season for the Wildcats. Even though they're down, they're down to their fourth string running back right now. For them, we don't worry about the running backs, except for with a team like Northwestern, where that offense is not dynamic right now. They are not putting up points in bunches against anyone. I don't know they're going to move the football effectively against that Badger defense. This has been a home series. 8-3 against the number of the last 11, so they have the technical support for Northwestern. But, I understand Wisconsin's had a couple of games this season where they weren't at their best, but the fact they got healthy last week against Illinois at home after that Michigan debacle. They have been a good point spread team. Not a lot of market support for the Badgers, and they match up fairly well, in my opinion, with Northwestern. 33-24 last year. They didn't cover a 16-point chalk. Last visit here, 21-7. So back-to-back double-digit victories for Wisconsin in this series since their home loss back in 2015. I would be surprised the Badgers make it 3 consecutive double-digit victories. If I'm playing, I'm laying, despite Northwestern's success, or the success of underdogs. The success of the dog and the success of underdogs in Northwestern games. That's a trend that has paid off very well this season. That is not my primary handicap for this contest. Wisconsin is the better of these two teams.
Teddy, you're a Michigan guy. Is Eastern Michigan in the Central or Eastern time zone?
It's in the Eastern time zone. All of Michigan is in the Eastern time zone.
Okay. All right. Well,
Eastern Michigan is literally it's in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is it's like 15 minutes from Ann Arbor, not even. It's just down the road from Ann Arbor. So anytime you're thinking about what the weather, you can look at the Ann Arbor weather. It'll give you the Ypsilanti weather or time zones or anything like that.
Okay, good stuff. Have you ever been to Ypsilanti? What kind of college town is it?
Well, of course you went to Ypsilanti, Ypsi, where we not a lot, but you go down to Ypsi every so often, different bars, different group of kids. You know how it is when you're in college. Okay, let's go to Ypsi tonight. Okay, a handful of times I was there.
But it actually is its separate place, or would the Eastern Michigan kind of students always go to Ann Arbor to?
No. It's a very different type. Eastern Michigan students, it's not a place where there's dorms on campus. It's mostly commuters and local kids, as opposed to the University of Michigan, which has a lot of people coming from out of state. And the facility, the big facilities and all that. You can't compare the two student bodies or clientele. That being said, we were trolling to try to meet girls. Yeah, let's go to Ypsi.
Right. Yeah, the new scenery, so to speak. But getting back to college football gambling here, we got 141-142 Army visiting Ypsilanti, Michigan to take on Eastern Michigan. Looks like they're laying 1, or Eastern Michigan laying 1 and pick 'em. So opinion in the marketplace here, a good one to shop around. We got 47.5 the total. How you looking to bet Army EMU?
Yeah, literally right now as we speak, you can find a +1 with either team, and that's good if the game ends on 1, and it could. We've talked multiple times right here on the Sportsmemo podcast about Eastern Michigan and their propensity for playing not just close games, very close games. Eastern went, they had like a 5-week stretch where every game was decided by a field goal or less, but that wasn't the case. There was a 4-week stretch with every game decided by a field goal or less. The 5th week was an overtime game. They lost by a touchdown. So it doesn't fit into that particularly narrow criteria. And the 6th game was the one where they beat Purdue. Yeah, so really, it's 6 games in a row. It came literally down to the wire last week. That wasn't the case. On the road at Ball State, they blew them out 42-20. It's a good sign for Eastern. And this is a program, I'm telling you flat out, this is a program that is better now than I thought it could ever get. Ipsy's not an easy place to recruit to, and Eastern's physical style of play has caught on. They're able to recruit to that style, and they're playing good football and money-winning football. 6-2 against the number so far this season, and they match up against Army in one sense, in that I expect them to be able to throw the football down the field against the Knights. The Black Knights are not that is not a strong secondary, and the better passing teams will have and have had success against them. But look at the other end of the spectrum. Eastern can't stop the run, and Army runs the ball pretty darn well. No surprise in this one. Seen a total 47.5 at some spots. That looks a little bit low to this better. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some offense, more offense than people are expecting, the markets are expecting.
Teddy, heading to Conference USA, we got Southern Miss at Charlotte. Looks like Southern Miss laying 7 or 7.5, so another good one to shop around the key touchdown number here. Low total, 43 or 43.5. How are you looking to bet Southern Miss, Charlotte?
And it's funny because for some reason we've been talking about Southern Miss a lot. I feel like I have Southern Miss game every week. And of the 130 teams in D1 football this year, I think I have the least opinion about Southern Miss. I have no sense of this squad. I don't. And that makes me, unfortunately, it means that I'm not able to give great analysis about them. But in terms of a spot, like what spots do I want Southern Miss in? What are they good at? Can I lay a touchdown or more than a touchdown with this squad against a weak opponent on the road? I don't have the answers to those questions. If I don't have the answers to those questions by late October, maybe we'll see something on Southern Miss. Maybe I'll find a tidbit on this team. Maybe I'll see them play. They're on ESPN3 this week. I'm actually going to try to watch some of that ball game and see if I can get a feel for them. But I don't want to waste anyone's time. I have no opinion on Southern Miss right now, and Charlotte's not a team that I've got a strong read on either. So pretty clear pass for this. Although I'll say this. Last time you saw a Southern Miss game with a total of 42.5, like it's sitting at the Westgate right now. That's low for a Southern Miss game, but it speaks volumes about their offensive struggles right now.
Teddy, we got TCU at Kansas, and I'll tell you, I don't want to bet Kansas, but at the same time, TCU with the quarterback issue, Robinson, he's just not that good of a player at this point. I don't know if it's injury, I don't know if it's in his head, what's going on, but I'm not looking to bet the Horned Frogs either. 13.5 on the road, 49 the total. Yeah,
and it's supposed to be a get-well spot for TCU, but TCU's been a bad point spread team this year. I bet against them last week in the Oklahoma game, and they rallied back to make things interesting in that contest, but they're certainly not – it's not a good team. Let's call it what it is. And you talked about the issues at quarterback, with Sean Robinson. Last week we saw Michael Collins get in the game, and he was, 7 of 17.
He gave him a spark, though, right when he came in.
He did.
Yeah.
He scared me a little bit, with the ticket on the Sooners. And, boy, I needed Oklahoma last Saturday. That was one that I couldn't on a rough day. I couldn't give that one away. But Collins gave him a spark. We've heard a lot about TCU's team speed and how good their team speed is, but it hasn't actually resulted in good play on the field or good production. But when you're taking Kansas, you're absolutely taking a leap of faith in a very, very bad football team. And, we saw the Jayhawks win back-to-back games here on this season. They were +6 in turnovers in one and +6 in turnovers in the other. That's what Kansas needs. And when they don't dominate the turnover battle, it's just a matter of how motivated is their opponent. When their opponent's motivated, they get crushed. When their opponents, they let them off the hook a little bit. Not so much. Now, it's a home game. We saw them beat Rutgers at home, but they lost to an Oklahoma State that isn't beating an Oklahoma State team that isn't beating anyone right now. They lost to them by 20 on this field. It's hard for me to get to the window with a team like Kansas getting less than 2 touchdowns. I don't like to bet on the bottom feeders in college football. And the Jayhawks, even with some improvement this season, they're still one of them haven't gained 100 yards on the ground in either of the last 2 weeks. And note the fact that against West Virginia and Texas Tech, the defense, again, creating turnovers, 7 of them in those 2 ball games. They still lost both of them by 3 scores or more.
Teddy, let's get to the deep, dark depths of Division I FBS.
I love this game. I'm excited about this game. I'm going to have good analysis on this game.
Good. I'm excited. We got UMass at Uconn. I've heard some people refer to Uconn as the worst team in Division I. I guess that still remains to be seen. But either way, we got the UMass Minutemen laying 5 on the road, 65.5 the total. Have at it, Teddy.
So UMass went into the game last week against Coastal Carolina. They were coming off a bye, and they scored 49 against Charlotte, 42 against Ohio, 42 against South Florida, thrown for 400 yards in each of the previous 2 games, overcame 5 turnovers in the South Florida game to put 42 points on the board. They had a bye. They had their QB guys healthy. They faced a Coastal Carolina defense that can't stop anyone. Score of that game was 6-3 at halftime. UMass managed 13 points. They gained 279 on the ground in that ball game. They haven't rushed like that since the opener, where they gained 282 against Duquesne. They had 279 on the ground against Coastal Carolina, finished with 13 points on the scoreboard. It was a baffling box score to go through, man, and a baffling game to watch live or to go through live. I don't understand what happened to UMass last week. That being said, this is not a team that I can trust to lay points with on the highway. And I know, all right, they were off the bye. Maybe they got out of sync or whatever happened there. I mean, UMass, have they won a game on the road? When's the last time they won a game on the road? It's been a while. Let's just put it, let alone laying points on the road. And here's a Uconn team, okay? I understand the hatred for Uconn. Uconn's been destroyed by everybody this season. I mean, literally by everybody. But there's one thing that you have to consider if you're looking to get involved in this game, and that is the strength of schedule for the Connecticut Huskies. Look at who they played. All right. Central Florida, Boise, Syracuse, Cincinnati, Memphis, South Florida. Every one of those teams is good or pretty good. The one game that they weren't, the one game that they faced reasonable competition against Rhode Island, they won that game. They gained close to 600 yards of offense in that ball game. Now, the defense has been a sieve. I mean, a sieve is not – it's been the worst defense I've seen this year. They've given up 300 rushing yards in each of the last 4 ball games and 250 passing yards in every one of those games. And they're not creating turnovers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is a bottom-tier defense. They're going up against an offense that didn't work last week, but scores points in bunches. But this is absolutely a major step down in class for a Uconn team that has faced nothing but heavyweights so far. There may be some residual value on Uconn as a result.
All right. Looking to bet the Huskies here. Stephanie.
That's the way I would play Huskies and or over.
Okay. Good stuff, Teddy. Nice breakdown.
And that total's bet way down. Yeah. I'm honest. Some of the, it's not like every non-marquee matchup I got nothing. Just some of them. That's Southern Miss, man. I got nothing on that team. I have no feel for them. UMass, Uconn, I got feel for both those teams. Coastal Carolina I might have a feel for. We'll talk about them right now.
Yeah, well, they just played UMass, and the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina head to Atlanta, Georgia, to take on Georgia State in the stadium that used to be called Turner Field, and laying 3 on the highway. The Chanticleers are 58.5 the total, Teddy. Yeah,
and I this might be points that are warranted, worth for laying. I mean, Georgia State, they're rough. They are. And certainly when you look at the defensive numbers, Georgia State is really rough in that regard. And all of a sudden, this is the Coastal Carolina. I mean, it's Coastal freaking Carolina, dude. They've only been a D1 program for a couple years. This is the year they're bowl eligible. If they win this game, they go to 5-3. So when you think about pressure for a team that's not used to pressure, yeah, there's a little bit. When you think about motivation and enthusiasm for a late October game at this time of the year, Coastal off the win over UMass, I think they're coming with something here. There's a couple of threes out there. I know some people have been betting Georgia State, but if I'm playing, I'm laying. I think the Chanticleers, who came with a defensive effort last week, may be able to do it again here, and certainly the team with a lot more to play for.
Teddy, heading out west, we got New Mexico at Utah State in Logan, Utah. There's 63.5 the total, with the Utah State team laying 20 at home.
Yeah, and the best side total parlay trend in college football to open the season was the Utah State Aggies. They went 5-0 against the spread and 5-0 to the over in their first 5 ball games. That finally came to a resounding end last week. I'm going to say resounding end, but Wyoming gave them a game. They faced a good defense, and the offense, I mean, it struggled. They didn't get 200 yards in that ball game, and it wasn't turnovers. They don't turn the ball over once, and only 24 points, so they did not cover the number. I'm sorry, it was 6 straight Utah State and over parlays that had cashed last week. It was the dog and the under. Does that downgrade me off Utah State? Not even a little. It means they faced a good defense on the road. They got the win. They got out of town. Now they're back home against a New Mexico team that, I mean, they had a chance. They had a spark. You know, Lobos blew out UNLV as dogs, went up to Colorado State, had the Rams on the ropes, let it get, and I think, you know, Bob Davie was a big part of that. You know, with a 1-point lead, Davie chose to run the ball up the middle 3 times and punt, which resulted in a last-second field goal for Colorado State and a loss for New Mexico. And then last week, how did they respond to that? They got blown off the field by Fresno at home. I worry about them this week. I worry about the mentality, and you know, and the money's come on New Mexico. Not my money. Utah State is real, and they're good. And I think last week's game was a hiccup, although it may have been a sign the betting markets have finally caught up to this team after their red-hot point spread start.
We got a game, maybe 2 left, and just a reminder, remember the coupon code TCovers at checkout for 50% off anything to do with Teddy Covers on sportsmemo.com. That's a full season, 3-day package, whatever you want. It's not buy one, get one. It's not, and no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just half off, 50% off any order at sportsmemo.com with Teddy, and the coupon code is TCovers. We got Oregon State at Colorado in the Pac-12 here, 62 the total, with the Buffs laying 24 at home.
Yeah, and this is one of those, it's a classic, I don't want this team and I don't want that team. You know, Oregon State's, I mean, they have multiple issues. I mean, the defense has been atrocious, and it's not getting better, and it's not going to get any better. You know, they have not been able to recruit defense to Corvallis, and, you know, I do not trust them to get stops. And you say, all right, well, at least they can chuck the football around and trade points. Well, in theory, they're supposed to be able to do that. But now they have not just QB injuries, multiple QB injuries. And boy, I mean, of all the, I had some frustrating losers last week, and I was pretty frustrated with Oregon State getting only 7 points against Cal. Cal got 49. I couldn't catch the over 58 in that ball game. So they finished with 56 because Oregon State, every quarterback got knocked out of the freaking game. So, and they only finished with a single touchdown. So Connor Blount, who's been starting the last few weeks since Jake Luton got hurt. Luton's a question mark. Blount's downgraded to doubtful after he got concussed. So what we're looking at probably, or I should say probably, let's call it possibly, for Oregon State would be Jake Coletto, a guy who's, you know, had a couple of mop-up snaps, and then last week, you know, threw 20 pass attempts, gained 104 yards on them, and threw a pick in the process. So I don't know that Oregon State is going to score. I don't know if they can stop anyone. So do we lay it with Colorado? Boy. And McIntyre, I went back and looked. I'm like, boy, this isn't Colorado's point spread range. And then I started looking. They've been good in the home chalk role. They've been good at blowing teams off the field under Mike McIntyre. I counted 13-5. I didn't double check it. 13-5 ATS as home chalk in the McIntyre era. But, you know, the one guy, and again, the last 2 weeks, nice battles against physical teams on the road. You know, saw them play. Sorry, I lost my I lost my spot here. They were at Washington last week. Got USC the week before, and you know, both of those physical battles that were relatively competitive. Don't be fooled by that final score last week. Colorado hung with Washington the whole time, but their playmaker, their quick strike touchdown, Laviska Shenault. Don't know if he's going to play again this week. He's all banged up, and this is not a team. This is a guy I need on the field if I'm going to lay 24 and a half with Colorado. I need the guy that provides the quick strike touchdowns. And, I don't know. He's hurt. I don't know if he's going to play. And if he plays, I don't know if he's going to be anywhere near 100%. So, easy pass on this side.
Teddy, you want to end it with a Conference USA matchup?
Sure.
All right. UAB Blazers, UTEP Miners. Looks like 15.5. The Blazers, who have been good, Teddy. They've been surprising this year, up against UTEP, who, as some bettors know, and by the way, UTEP is not the worst team in Division I football. This team's playing hard. We got a 50 as the total here in El Paso. How would you look to bet this Conference USA matchup?
Well, yeah, I mean, UTEP has been battling 3 of the last 4 weeks, and I get some pretty good teams, where they're hanging with North Texas. And the fact that UAB battled with North Texas down to the wire last week now has to hit the highway for this one. That was a big game. They rallied from behind in the second half, outscored the Mean Green 19-0 after the break. Plays on both sides of the football. The key play in that game was a safety that really changed momentum. Bill Clark's got a defense. And, I mean, this team overachieved last year in a big way, straight up and against the spread. And obviously so far this season, they have as well. But spot-wise, I do not like this spot for the Blazers coming off the big win on homecoming that basically clinched their half of the conference title. I mean, didn't clinch it yet, but they'll be favored in every remaining game. Here's UTEP. They're 0-19 under Dana Dimmel. They've been battling. They've been coming up short. In this point spread range, you battle and come up short. Maybe I'll look up the number.
Great breakdown, Teddy. Guys, remember the coupon code TCovers, 50% off. That's half off anything to do with Teddy Covers at sportsmemo.com. Teddy, anything you want to throw out before we shut this down?
What do I want to throw out? I want to throw out this dirty tissue. I'm going to throw out this pen that doesn't work. I want to throw out what I don't want to do this week is throw out winners. Unfortunately, I left a couple of winners on the cutting room floor last Saturday. But, boy, I do like the looks of this card both Saturday and Sunday. So, hopefully, you can get on board for what I expect to be a big bounce-back weekend off what's been a rock-solid campaign all year long until last week.
And, guys, you can get on board for half off. Use the coupon code TCovers. 68% in the NFL, 58% in college football. Both of those numbers year to date. We will be back with our next guest, Kyle Hunter, in just a minute.